I want to talk my way through something that I'm feeling. Like it's rolling around in my consciousness. I'm being aware of, and it's the fact that like it feels absurd to act out everyday capitalism while things are collapsing, right? Like the world is collapsing but then we have no choice. Like we have no choice but to act out capitalism because it's how we get our basic needs met. And it's like funny because, okay, or let me use an example. I just got a new car, and I had a few tarot readings on my For You page that were like 2 months ago saying that I was going to get a new car. And at the time I was like, oh, this feels absurd because like I have no plans to get a new car and like, whatever, right? So I didn't even listen to the full readings, which I wish I had saved it so I could tell the creators they were right. But, it was like, it didn't even register like in the dopamine factor. And I have ADHD, so my brain registers dopamine. But, and I guess I'm not saying I wanted to register. Like, I didn't think it was going to solve all my problems or like, or I don't know, like I wasn't seeking relief in any way. But and also being able to get a new car, right? Like that speaks to my own level of privilege, whatever it is. I'm not saying my life's perfect. I've got problems, but I'm very much aware of that. But it reminded me that like desires in the face of doom become like muted and minimized because, but it's a good thing that they've become muted and minimized because then it shows that you're not desensitized to like the things that really matter and the things that are actually going on. And it creates a framework where something that like for some people, like getting a car is like a huge aspiration. It's a dream. It's a goal. And then, but it's like really should be basic and guaranteed, right? It should just be like a normal thing. Like people should be able to, it shouldn't be a novelty. It should be something like needs shouldn't need to be something that's like celebratory. Like it should just be like, oh yeah, of course you got one. That's the next logical step, right? But if we're put in a state of existence where we're basically forced to see our needs as something that are like something we win or something that's celebratory, like how do we get to the point of having wants? Because we're so busy like fighting for our needs. So like it's like sad because something that should just be normal becomes celebratory, and then it limits the rest of life because the things you want, how can you even fathom them if you don't have the things that you need first? And like I'm not saying we shouldn't want things. I'm not even advocating for that because like people need things to aspire to or things to desire to stay engaged in life, right? To progress in life. Like there's like a natural impulse for life to be perpetuated. But it's like weird to be in a position where it's like focusing on aspirations or self-gratification in terms of consumerism in the face of such loss of life. Like it feels like almost callous, but like I understand it's natural. Desire is natural, and I'm not saying we should like not have it. And everything that's going on is just, I guess, like making me refocus on deeper desires that I have, things that are less tangible, less like about physical objects or consumerism, or even maybe, I don't know, like goals. Like what is a goal if it doesn't honor life at this point? Because like no matter which way you slice things, it's like we can't get away from things. Like even if you're just focused on like love and life and children or whatever it is, right? Like everyone has physical needs and those needs have to be met. But like anything or object or structure like should be in the support of life. They should be in service of life. They shouldn't be created to leech off of your life and your life force. And with the state of the world, right? It's like I can't prioritize thinking about wanting things right now when like if you don't have a life, you can't want anything. You can't experience anything. You can't have anything. But it's like showing the range of human experience and how lacking it is. Like that there's so many people who need so much and don't even have that to be able to actually enjoy the experience of being alive. And that, I feel like, is a crime against humanity. Like every person deserves to have joy and hope and love and the space and ability to find their aspiration. Isn't it in our Constitution? Yeah, the pursuit of happiness, right? Like this like lofty ideal that we've canonized, but at the same time don't witness in practice. And it becomes like predatory almost. Like I'm gonna use that as an excuse to like take away from you, or take away from your life and then make you pay it back to me. And I think like as a leftist or even as a spiritual person, someone who's self-aware, right, when you start to break down the foundations and the cracks on the premises of society, you realize how ridiculous they are, and it becomes so like untenable, right? Like you're like, how can I sit here and advocate this or accept this? And again, it's not like to never have desires again, but it's like, how do we get our needs and wants met without exploiting each other or hurting each other? Like if we're not capable of that, if you're not capable of that, like, are you human? What is the definition of like being a human and humanism and humanity if you don't have the capacity for empathy and compassion? Like if the line isn't the line of good and bad isn't at genocide, where is it? Where could it exist? There's no place that it could exist, because we're talking about living. And, pro-life people, where are you? Like as a Buddhist, as a human, I am very pro-life, but not in the sense of punishment, in the sense of people should be able to exist without being aggressed upon. Like, I feel like that's not controversial, but what we're watching makes that seem controversial. So if our rights aren't inalienable, what are they? And what are we doing? What are we doing here? That's the question. I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I was a Buddhist community leader for like well over 15 years. And like the higher up you get in Buddhist community leadership, the more people you're responsible for, like the larger regional like space, it's like there's pockets of people, and then you become responsible for larger pockets of people, and you like drive around California and meet with these people and help them with their understanding of Buddhism, with their faith, with their understanding, with their struggles. You're helping them find hope, have hope, but in the framework or using the tenets of Buddhism. So to be in a leadership position like that, you have to actually know what the tenets of Buddhism are, and it requires you to like have an understanding of the mundane aspects of life and the complex aspects of life, and faith in humanity and hope for the future. And I am grateful for the time that I spent in, which is a lot of my life, in being a Buddhist community leader. And I stepped down, and now I'm way less involved in my like Buddhist church or Buddhist organization, however you like want to phrase it. But it was because of like some issues that I saw, and those issues were not being addressed, and I just like had to take a step back and reprioritize my life and look at my own faith. But anyway, deconstruction work. But it was like while I was doing that work with people, it's like I learned so many like valuable ways to exist in community and prioritize people and like recenter hope, because you're required to know more about Buddhism. So it's almost like an artwork, right, where you're finding ways to relay the same hope or understanding, or infuse someone again with this like confidence that they can like change their lives and improve their lives, and that their lives have meaning and value. And you find commonalities and things in art and books and scripture. You find different ways of using language and frameworks to help them like demystify their blockages and find clarity and find hope. And through that, they can return to themselves. Like you're just directing them back to themselves, and like community becomes about support and uplifting. And as a Buddhist community leader, you're like there to help spearhead that. And if the more close you are with people, or the more open they are with you, right? Like you can see things about their lives or their hopes and dreams, and then help them build a pathway, but also open them their faith or themselves, or open themselves to the universe, to solutions, to internal change, to external changes. So it's like very value creation oriented, solution oriented. And I don't mean like in a bypassing way. It's like because it actually requires deep realism. Like you have to be willing to face yourself and hold yourself deeply accountable to do the work that's required to overcome those personal blockages, external blockages, like belief systems, which is like what spiritual spaces, like non-denominational spiritual spaces have done, right? But so my framework, my upbringing was in this space in the context of Buddhism. So because I've done that for like over 15 years, right? Like I can approach it in a level like balanced, grounded way and find stability in my presence when I'm doing this work with other people, which may externally look like neutrality. And I want to be very clear that it is not neutral. And being able to do that work is not neutral, because you have to be able to feel things so deeply that, I need to finish this so I can take lunch. But you have to feel things so deeply and understand them deeply and be able to bring like a clear, fresh perspective or awareness to someone. It's almost like bringing a refreshing glass of water on a hot day, right? It's like you're helping them find calmness, find the coolness inside, regulate their nervous system. And sometimes when you're doing that work, it can look like you're just like passionate, like to the untrained or untested eye, for someone who hasn't gone through that, like, we have one of these things where it's like you're taking steel and refining it into like a sword of truth and clarity, right? Or it's like refining a metal, right? If you haven't done that refinement work, that might look like coolness or detachment, but it's just that you've learned how to see past the emotion and be regulated and find the intention and hope. And again, not bypassing, because you have to feel your emotions to overcome all those things. And you have to be able to find clarity and see intention to help someone else find clarity and see intention. And when you do this work over years, it becomes like, like it's like running or swimming. You get better at it and it looks effortless, but it's actually not. Like there's still a process that I have to go through a lot of times to meter myself. But it's like I've come to understand it becomes a yes and, right? Like a yes and, where you're affirming. Like you have to be able to ground details and ground context and ground emotions and weight morality and immorality and desire and intention and impact, and then like represent them in a way that's accessible and useful to the person that you're trying to help, or the person you're talking to, or the person who's seeking support from you. And to do that work, again, you have to be able to do it yourself first, because if you're not, and your life can't be an example, why would someone come to you to get that help or assistance? And one of the problems we face, right, is like short attention spans and lack of accountability or willingness to work harder. And many people being at different levels, right? Different levels of understanding, different levels of awareness, different levels of self-accountability, self-work, different approaches to that work if they have started it. How deep are they going? Excuse me. And like the level of work that has to be done internally and to maintain that internal awareness, because you could touch it and then leave that place immediately. It's something you have to maintain. Like that self-mastery is something you have to work on and maintain. And there's so many different ways to get there. And having an understanding of numerous different ways is great, because it helps you speak to people in unique ways that are specific to them or will be helpful to them. And obviously the more you know them, the better you can help them, because you understand what their framework is and how you can explain to them within their framework. And the problem with things like online and like I can't do it in a 10-minute video, right? And you're reaching people online that are at different levels of understanding. And when you're talking to people, like the way you talk to someone who's at a level 1 and the way you talk to someone who's at a level 9 would be completely different. And then if you're a level 9 person, you see me or anyone talking to someone in a level 1 way, it may seem like, oh, this is disingenuous or dispassionate or something. But it's like the more you understand, or the higher level of understanding you have for your own mental or emotional like maturity, capacity, empathy, you know that there's more nuance to that, and calling people more into themselves looks different with different people and at different levels. if someone's at level 1, you're going to have a more rudimentary conversation, right? You're not going to be like going into deep details and nuance. It's going to be a base level conversation. But someone at level 9, you're going to be able to go into like all of the nuance. But you need time for that too, right? Like there has to be time. Like to actually effectively communicate something, you actually need more time. The thing is, most people don't have the patience. I bet there's not a lot of people that are going to watch this entire video, for example, you know? And I'm not saying they have to. Whoever watches it to the end is who is supposed to watch it, and however that moves them or whatever that inspires in them, right? That's the like engagement our souls decided to take on. But there is this like unfortunate thing that happens with people who are not self-aware and within the human psyche itself, where it's like people assume like everyone has the exact same experience, baseline, knowledge, understanding, processing, power or ability, or like we don't process things the same. We don't experience things the same. It's ridiculous to try to force everyone to see things one way or to experience them the way you experience them. But the work of like self-awareness and self-actualization is like meeting people where they are, being clear, getting on the same page, and then moving forward from that page. But each one of those things is a whole different relationship. And that happens with people, organizations, beliefs, emotions. Like that's, and that deep level of work. I was talking to my friend about this last night because we were like having a hard time with the apathy that we're witnessing and experiencing and how emotional it makes us. But like, obviously I try not to cry on camera, but it's like the way society almost sets us up to be egotistical and narcissistic is like something that deeply needs to be overcome by some people, and in other ways, in other like to other different amounts per person needs to be overcome within ourselves. And I try not to be arrogant, but I also have to sometimes remind myself like context and capacity, right? Like not everyone has the same context and not everyone has the same capacity as you. And we're so diverse, and our experiences are diverse, and the ways we understand things and can illuminate things to and for each other are diverse. And we should embrace that aspect instead of expecting us to be like a monolith. And in Buddhism, especially like having been a community leader for many people at many levels, and like I've learned to understand, okay, there's like a quote from Shakyamuni where he says desires lead to enlightenment. And it can be like some people might hear that statement and go into hedonism, right? But like the meat of that sentiment is desires call us forth and call us into evolution. They call us into experience. And like people don't often think like your base level needs are also desires in terms of like the body, right? Like a baby, thirst, hunger, those are desires. It's like a base level operating desire of the human body that is the system that you're born into, right? So there's no reality where we aren't perpetuated forward, pulled forward by something, whatever it is, whether it be needs or not. I'm getting a download. But that pull goes all the way into self-actualization and then beyond, right? So, and then going back to self-actualization, right? Like I know it can be tiresome sometimes to go back down to level 1 when you like maybe want to operate at level 9 or you've been operating at level 9. But most people unfortunately are at level 1 or 2 or 3, right? And if you are really based in humanism and compassion and empathy, then you're willing to do the tough work that is required of you to like sludge backwards to go to level 1 and make level 9 accessible or the pathway or advancement or desire to move forward to level 9 seem possible, tangible, desirable, right? Like, and not like, oh, we're here to seduce the masses. No, that's not what I mean. It's like when you have that level of awareness and you exist in a level of freedom, that's like that cool, refreshing drink, right? And then you having it and just existing as it makes other people aware, like, oh shit, that's refreshing. I want that. How did they get that? And it's like you're in Buddhism, your life is the example. Like your actions, your presence, your input, your words, everything that is you and you project out into the world is a beacon for whether or not you're someone who is of I guess I could say compassion, right? Or you're safe, or you're, and it's like that authenticity is something that is so rare in our world, that feels very rare, that it's like refreshing. And some people actually resent you, right? Because they don't, and they may not even consciously clock it. They just like decide there's something about this person I hate, right? And it's like, cause you're over here living like sunshine, and they're like, why do you get to feel that way? And even it's like having your full range of emotion allows you to enjoy what there is to enjoy. There's another quote in Buddhism that I love, and it's suffer what there is to suffer and enjoy what there is to enjoy, and regard both suffering and joy as facts of life and continue moving forward, right? Because it's not a desire to stop bad things from happening or try to only make good things happening. It's accepting the full range of the human experience and life itself, and then centering yourself as the person who can navigate through that. And then as you navigate through that and get good at navigating through that, you're able to go back to like level 1, if it's required of you. It's not, I'm not saying like go, like don't be a crusader, you know, but it's like if someone approaches you or your online community or space, right, is more level 1 than it is level 9, it's like you have to service all of the levels. And it's like, yeah, you may be servicing appetizers to some people and then whole course meals to others with sides and fixings, and some people may even get dessert, right? And others are just like working on basic nutrition or just appetizers, like I know maybe it's not the best example, but it's like raising this question for me too, like I'm not sure 100% if I should be focusing my input in a specific way, and I've just been like meeting the moment and doing the best I can as I go. And then there's like the current events and trying to manage like this soul fatigue, and not fatigue for advocating. I'm not getting tired of advocating. I'm not getting tired of boycotting. My fatigue is centered around the apathy that I'm witnessing and experiencing in my personal life, in my community, in the world at large, in the institutions that are supposed to uphold our rights and our values and perpetuate our well-being. Watching those systems like fail basically, or like fail the litmus test is rough. Even for people who are hopeful, probably even more so for people who are hopeful actually. But so I'm not fatiguing in that way. I don't mean that. I'm fatiguing in like people not rising to the moment or rising to their growth. But again, I have to remind myself that everyone exists at different levels. And I'm also not advocating for you to like there are people who are operating from good faith, right? They're operating from a 1 or a 2 or 3 or 4, and then they have good faith. And there's some people who are operating in a 1 and they're not in good faith. But there's people who are literally sometimes level 0 or in the negative space. And I don't suggest engaging with those people. Anyone who's operating in bad faith or who's seeking to create more harm or seeking to misunderstand you. I don't think there's value there. And I think you should leave them behind and refocus, like reroute your focus away from those people. And refocus it on people who are operating good faith, who are trying to learn, who are either already on the road or are trying to enter the road that you're on, or are existing in the vicinity of the road that you're on, or in the ways, who want to exist in the ways that you're attempting to or are, like peacefully, you know, as an example, if I'm being too contextual. But it's like focusing on those people, the people in your environment, people you care about, people who care about you, people who you're unwilling to leave behind, or you believe can get there with you, or you like care enough about them that you don't want to see them behave a certain way that is just hard to love them if they continue to behave that way. Efforting with those people is time well spent, but people in bad faith or engaging as bad faith actors, right? Like people who are not being genuine is a waste of time. Don't spend your time doing that. And I think the issue we're seeing with like people who are supposed to be representing us, they're supposed to be helping us advance. They're supposed to be maintaining and expanding our democracy, or our access to democracy, or our living, working democracy, or the expression of democracy. And they're failing to do so. And then it's like, so in one way it's good because we're watching idols fall, and then we're realizing like we can't outsource this. It has to be built collectively. And also it sort of forces the that growth. I think in another video I was talking about how we either get pushed into change by desire or requirement. So like desire, right, is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like okay, requirement is like I have to do this, so I have to overcome to be able to do this. Like a video I posted earlier was like having your needs met shouldn't be like a goal. But when it is, then it like shifts it moves the Overton window, and it makes things that should be, it just like shifts everything where it becomes unrealistic, but you get used to that what is unrealistic as what is. And I'm challenging people to challenge that thought, because everything could be however we make it. This is a society built on humans. Social constructs are what make the fabric of our society, what maintain them. And we're watching people rip that fabric, or we're realizing they're not holding or building that fabric. But back to self-actualization, like requirement. Either we are going to require this system to evolve and meet our needs, or like the desire to have them is already in progressive people, but it's like we're in a requirement part. And when you self-actualize as a human being, right, the top of the pyramid of self-actualization is you. And I feel like there must be one beyond it, but it's like that's the goal. But then once you reach that goal, then it becomes like, now that I've self-actualized, what's beyond my internal freedom? How do I have that freedom expressed externally? How do I experience it in the world I exist in the world around me? And it becomes this like flow, relationship, negotiation between self and community, right? And what does that expression look like? What does that cooperation look like? What do we want it to look like? So your self-actualization becomes the floor now, because you now have new things to aspire to, because your awareness or capacity, you've reached self-actualization. But if you haven't reached self-actualization, I can see how it's harder to sort of hold those, because remember, it's either desire or requirement. And some people have the requirement, but they don't have the desire, so they could choose not to do that work and not advance or not evolve in any way. But again, when I was saying, like, you can choose to disengage from people who are choosing to live the way they want to live, if they're not trying to change and they don't have hope to change and that's where they want to exist in, like, you should still move forward. Because once you self-actualize, then you start hitting a point where you have the capacity to like reconcile the incongruities, like the things that don't match. And then it's like you have to decide, like, basically, like, am I going to fix and restore what's here in front of me in this garden, or am I going to build a new garden and plant new things with new people? And you're the only person who can decide where your barriers are, or what your parameters should be, or what you want them to be, what your capacity is actually. But either way, you have to be like radically accountable for where you're at, and if you want to stay there or if you don't want to stay there. And for those of us who it's become clear that like we don't want to stay where we are and that things do need to change, and have that level of awareness, and can see that or realize that improvement can start or exist in or be birthed from any segment of society or our life. It can be spoken to or reframed within any of those segments. It's like the weed whacker. And it's worth putting in the effort to see that needle move forward, even if it moves forward just a little bit, because and that's not to say we shouldn't ask for it to move more, but it's okay to appreciate that it's moving at all. And it's hard because you get fatigued with trying to push that needle just in your own work, right? Just working on just yourself. Pushing that needle is a lot of work, and it's not for weak people, and it's not for the faint of heart. And it takes a lot of power and strength and compassion and love for yourself. And most people don't love themselves enough, or not aware of themselves enough to even begin to start that work or perpetuate that work. And you can't look to those people in times like this, because they have nothing to offer. They have nothing new to offer. They have nothing constructive. They're not being value oriented. They're not trying to create value or create improvement. And this is like part of the thing where it's like the delineation between liberal and leftist, right? Leftists are willing to challenge what is, what could be. They understand, they question, they look at the framework, they look at the rules, they ask questions. They come to a better understanding and realize that change may not require the system existing the way it is, or maybe it can be change from within, but they know that there's some input that has to happen to change the output, right? Instead of just, it's like doing the same thing. It's like taking robotic steps and being detached from something and not actually challenging it. And then it's like frustrating. Sorry, they're going to keep weed whacking. It's frustrating because non-progressive liberals are a huge problem that we have, and they need to realize that they're a problem. But whether they choose to realize that themselves, or they realize it by their environment itself saying, I will no longer do this with you Because again, where is the most valuable place for your input? Is it with someone who has no desire for change, has no plans to change, isn't even willing to throw things against the wall or ask a question? I mean, questioning itself shouldn't be a scary thing. And the funniest thing I witnessed, and growing up in my Buddhism, we were taught to question from a young age. And also, I don't think anyone could have stopped me questioning anyway. But it's like a joke, because if you can't even hold up against a question, how can you hold up against reality itself? Like, it just shows this fragility that is so frustrating, because I don't understand why people are defending that fragility so, like, aggressively and defending the status quo when the status quo is bad. But it's like people are so lazy or unaware. Not all of them are lazy, but some of them are lazy, where it's like, well, what you're asking would require me to change, grow, learn, shift, do something. But and even if you're telling them, like, it could be better if you put in that input, they're still, like, hesitating to do it. So it's like, some people actually just like to complain or look at the world as cup half empty. And I have no interest in engaging with those people when it comes to being progressive or trying to have deeper conversations to change things, because what is the input you're offering? And not to be rude, but deprioritizing that as the center is something that needs to be done if we're going to move forward in a way and move forward faster, because in a way that's that we see, like, change, we see incremental change. Like, I understand that there's a process to things. No one's saying that. And it's like, I hate this, like, assertion of, like, a little bit leftist or naive. No, you're naive, because you're not even willing to question or challenge, and you're accepting what is. And if you can't take any kind of criticism or accept the reality, how valuable are you making your input, right? Like, we have to be self-accountable and mutually accountable. And I have friends who hold me accountable. Sometimes I do say things wrong, or I do propose things wrong, or I do get a little lazy in some places, and people who love me will lovingly be like, challenge that, look deeper, and then I will. And I appreciate that, because I'm better for it, they're better for it, we're all better for it. Having care and compassion requires conflict and things that are difficult. Saying, doing, thinking, working through things that are difficult. And we can never see change if no one's willing to actually examine anything. So when I say lazy, I mean more so in terms of the lack of desire to challenge. Just challenge. I mean, challenging it in your mind and your heart is literally free. Like, it doesn't actually cost you anything in this actual life. Like, I don't have to pay these AirPods to, like, challenge that, you know? Like, it's free work I can do. But it can pay dividends, right? Like, it can create so much more from the question and entertaining the question. But if we don't entertain the question, what are we getting? We're getting more of the same. So why would I keep investing in something that's not paying back? It just doesn't make sense. So I'm challenging myself and all of us to, like, dig in deeper and really look at what it is that we're doing or what we think we're doing. Like, what is the point if we can't have those conversations or be strong enough to challenge even the concept? Like, and if you don't have the bandwidth, then sit on the sidelines and let the people who do talk about it without coming in and being, like, unuseful in those conversations. You know what I mean? And it's like, check each other. Like, wait. We're going down a path of, like, this isn't constructive. How do we help each other? How do we help ourselves? Because that's the only way we're going to get out. No one's going to come save us. It won't be Congress. And it won't be the aliens, even though I would love if they came down now, because I'm tired. But it's like, if you need to take a break, or you need to find community, or you need support, like, look for it where you can. Look for people who are saying soft words, who are acknowledging, validating your feelings and your thoughts. Look for those people and listen to them more than you listen to the people who are just perpetuating the same thing, or perpetuating fear, or perpetuating, or who are not advocating for actual improvement, right? Okay.